My father made me give up my dream to work in his company, promising he'd give it to me as inheritance. But now that he's gone, I find out everything was given to my sister's boyfriend. I was 18 when Dad sat me down and said, "Forget college. You're learning the business." My brother and I believed him because he kept saying the company would be ours someday. It made sense at the time. Why waste money on tuition when we'd inherit everything anyway? My brother quit after 2 years. He told me the low pay and Dad's treatment weren't worth some future promise. I thought he was being dramatic. I stayed because I genuinely believed it would all pay off in the end. That's when things started changing. My sister never had to work at the company, but somehow got an allowance that was triple our salary. She'd post vacation photos while I was working weekends. Dad said she'd still get her share when he passed, which seemed unfair, but I accepted it. Then my sister started dating Gavin. Within 6 months, Gavin became Dad's golden boy. Suddenly, it was Gavin traveling with Dad to meet clients. Gavin getting taken to expensive dinners. Gavin receiving advice about business strategy. Meanwhile, I was the one actually running operations, managing inventory, handling payroll, dealing with angry customers. Dad forgot my 25th birthday completely, didn't even send a text. But that same year, he threw a massive party for Gavin's birthday, rented out a whole restaurant, invited 100 people, spent thousands. I showed up because I thought I had to, watched everyone toast to Gavin while I stood in the corner like a stranger. I confronted Dad about it once. He said Gavin had fresh perspectives and modern ideas. I asked, "What about my ideas? The ones that increased our revenue by 30% last quarter." He just shrugged and said, "That's your job." Gavin started making comments too. Little jabs about how I was basically just an employee, how Dad saw him as the real successor. Dad would laugh when he said these things, actually laugh like it was some inside joke between them. I worked there for 8 years total. 8 years of opening at 6 a.m. and closing at 8 p.m. 8 years of handling emergencies at midnight. 8 years of covering for everyone else's mistakes. I made less than our newest hire because Dad said I didn't need much since I'd inherit everything eventually. My friends all moved on with their lives, got degrees, started careers, bought houses. I was stuck making poverty wages while being promised a fortune that felt further away every year. Then Dad got sick, cancer. He had 6 months. I thought maybe now he'd finally talk to me about the transition, about my role in the company's future. Instead, he spent those final months teaching Gavin everything, taking him to every meeting, introducing him to every contact. I visited Dad in the hospital 2 days before he died. I asked him directly, "Dad, am I going to run the company?" He looked at me for a long time and said, "We'll see." That was it, we'll see. The will reading was last Tuesday. My brother got the house in the suburbs worth maybe $300K. My sister got his savings account around $200K. And the company, the $1 million company I'd sacrificed my entire 20 seconds for, went 80% to Gavin. The remaining 20% was split between my sister and brother. I got nothing, not even a mention. My sister actually smirked at me across the lawyer's office. Gavin wouldn't even look at me, but I could see him trying not to smile. My brother seemed shocked, but didn't say anything. I walked out before anyone could speak to me, drove home in silence, sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by 8 years of wasted time. The next morning, I started making calls. First to our 3 main suppliers, told them I was leaving and strongly suggested they get payment up front for any new orders because management was changing. 2 of them pulled their contracts within 48 hours. Then I called our biggest clients, the ones I'd built relationships with over years of late-night calls and problem solving. I told our biggest client everything, showed him documentation of my work versus Gavin's. He was furious, said he'd pull a $3 million contract. Watching it all fall apart for them felt better than anything in years. That night, my brother finally called me back, said he needed to tell me something about Dad's will, something the lawyer had told him privately. He sounded terrified, said Dad didn't write that will and he could prove it, but someone had just broken into his house. I didn't even think. I just grabbed my keys and ran to the car. My brother lived about 20 minutes away in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where people actually knew their neighbors and looked out for each other. But when I pulled up, his front door was wide open, swinging slightly in the wind. I could see broken glass on the porch from where someone had smashed the small window next to the doorknob. "Jake?" I called out, stepping inside carefully. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it. Couch cushions were thrown everywhere, drawers pulled out and dumped on the floor, books scattered across the carpet. The filing cabinet in the corner was completely emptied, papers strewn around like someone had been searching for something specific. I heard a noise from the basement and my heart stopped. "Jake, that you?" "Down here." His voice came up, shaky and breathless. I found him sitting on the basement floor with his back against the wall, his phone clutched in his hand. He looked up at me with wild eyes like he'd seen something that terrified him. "They were looking for it," he said. "They were looking for proof." "Proof of what? What's going on?" He held up his phone. "I took photos at the lawyer's office when no one was looking. Photos of the will they read to us." He scrolled through his camera roll and showed me. "Look at this signature." I leaned in close. It was Dad's signature, allegedly, but something was off. The loops were wrong. The pressure on certain letters didn't match. I'd seen Dad sign hundreds of documents over the years. This wasn't quite right. Now look at this, Jake said, pulling up another photo. It was from a different document, something he'd found in Dad's desk at home a few weeks before he died. This is Dad's real signature, from a contract he signed maybe 8 months ago. See the difference? I saw it immediately. The real signature had this distinct way of crossing the T in our last name, this little flourish Dad always did. The will signature didn't have it. Holy shit. There's more, Jake said, getting to his feet. He was still shaking. Remember how Dad was on all those meds at the end? The morphine and everything? Yeah, of course. I checked his medical records. I still had access through the family portal the hospice set up. He pulled up another document on his phone. Look at the dates. The will was supposedly signed on March 14th, but look at his medication log for that week. I read through it, my stomach dropping with each line. March 14th showed Dad received a morphine dose at 8 a.m. that would have knocked out a horse. Another at noon. Another at 4 p.m. He would have been completely out of it. Exactly. There's no way he could have signed anything coherent that day. He could barely stay awake for more than 10 minutes at a time. Jake's voice cracked. Someone forged this. Someone waited until he was too drugged to know what was happening. Gavin, I said quietly, and probably Jess helped, Jake added, referring to our sister. Think about it. She was there all the time during those last weeks. She had access. She could have convinced Dad to sign something, told him it was just a temporary thing, something else entirely. My mind was racing. Everything suddenly made sense. The smirk on Jess's face at the lawyer's office. The way Gavin couldn't look at me. They'd planned this. They'd literally waited for our father to be on his deathbed and stolen everything. We have to tell someone, I said. The police, a lawyer, someone. Jake shook his head. That's the thing. I can't prove I didn't break in here myself and fake this scene. And you already sabotaged the company. If we come forward now, Gavin's lawyer will say we're just trying to cover our tracks, that we're making this up because we're angry. So what do we do? I don't know, man. I really don't know. He looked around at the destroyed basement. But whoever broke in here, they didn't find what they were looking for. I have backups, cloud storage, email drafts. They can't delete everything. I helped him clean up over the next few hours. We didn't talk much, just moved in silence, putting things back in drawers, writing furniture. My mind kept circling back to the same thought. They'd stolen everything from me, and now they were trying to cover their tracks. Around midnight, Jake made us coffee, and we sat at his kitchen table. I have an idea, I said slowly, but it's risky. I'm listening. We can't use legal channels. Not right away. We need more proof. Concrete proof, the kind that can't be disputed. I leaned forward. I still have my keys to the office. Gavin hasn't changed the locks yet because he probably thinks I won't dare go back there. You want to break in? I want to find Dad's actual notes. You know how he was. He kept everything. Handwritten notes about the business, about succession plans, everything. If there's anything that shows his real intentions, it'll be in his desk drawer, the locked one. Jake stared at me for a long moment. If you get caught, I won't get caught. I know that office better than anyone. I know which floorboards creak, which windows don't lock properly, where all the security cameras are. I paused. Or at least where they used to be. This is insane. They stole 8 years of my life, Jake. They forged a will while our father was dying. They broke into your house tonight. I met his eyes. I'm done playing by the rules. He was quiet for a minute, then he nodded. Okay, but you need backup. What if something goes wrong? You'll be my lookout. Park down the street. Keep your phone on. If anything looks weird, you call me immediately. We spent the next hour going over every detail. I drew a map of the office layout, marked all the cameras I knew about, planned out the exact route I'd take. The security system was old, the kind with a code panel by the front door. I knew the code. Dad had never changed it in 15 years, his wedding anniversary. At 2 a.m., we drove to the industrial park where the company was located. Jake parked his car 3 buildings down with a clear view of the entrance. I walked the rest of the way, dressed in dark clothes, a flashlight in my pocket and my old office keys in my hand. The parking lot was empty except for a few cars that probably belonged to the overnight cleaning crew in the building next door. I approached the side door, the one the employees used, slid my key in. It still worked. Inside, the office was dark and quiet. The emergency exit signs cast a red glow over everything. I knew exactly where I was going. Dad's office was on the 2nd floor, corner office with the big windows overlooking the parking lot. I took the stairs slowly, testing each step before putting my full weight on it. The hallway upstairs was carpeted, muffling my footsteps. I could see the glow of security cameras in a few spots, little red lights blinking in the darkness. I kept to the walls, moving through the blind spots I'd memorized over 8 years of working there. Dad's office door was unlocked. Gavin probably figured there was nothing important left in there. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, then pulled out my flashlight, keeping the beam low. The desk was exactly as I remembered it. Big mahogany thing Dad had bought at an estate sale 20 years ago. The top drawer was for pens and random office supplies. The side drawers held files and binders. But the bottom drawer on the right side, that one had always been locked. Dad kept his personal stuff there. his journal, his notes, things he didn't want anyone else to see. I pulled out the small pry bar I'd brought with me. The drawer was old, the lock mechanism probably as ancient as the desk itself. It took me 3 tries, and when it finally popped open, the crack sounded like a gunshot in the quiet office. I froze, listening. No footsteps, no alarms, nothing. Inside the drawer were 3 leather notebooks, the kind Dad always preferred. I pulled them out and started flipping through pages, using my phone camera to photograph anything that looked important. And then I found it. Page after page of Dad's handwriting, dated from about 2 years ago. Plans for the company succession, detailed notes about how he wanted to split ownership between me and Jake, concerns about Gavin's flash over substance approach to business, worries about Jess's spending habits and whether she could be trusted with money. Boys need to run it together, one entry read. They've earned it. They understand what this business means. Gavin talks a big game but folds when things get tough. Saw it last month with the Henderson account. Kid doesn't have what it takes. My hands were shaking as I photographed page after page. This was it. This was proof of what Dad really wanted. Not some forged will signed while he was pumped full of morphine, but his actual thoughts, written in his own hand, dated and detailed. I was so focused on the notebooks that I almost didn't hear it. A sound from somewhere else in the building. Footsteps maybe, or a door closing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Jake. Security car just pulled into the lot. Get out now. Shit. I shoved the notebooks back in the drawer, tried to make it look undisturbed, checked my phone camera roll to make sure all the photos had saved properly. The footsteps were getting closer now, definitely in the building. Someone was coming upstairs. I moved to the window. It overlooked the back of the building, where the dumpsters were. Not a huge drop, maybe 12 feet to the ground. There was a drainage pipe running down the side of the building. The footsteps were in the hallway now. I could see flashlight beams under the door. No choice. I unlocked the window as quietly as I could and slid it open. The night air hit my face, cool and sharp. I climbed out onto the window ledge, my heart absolutely hammering in my chest. The drain pipe was just to my left. I reached for it, testing whether it would hold my weight. Behind me, I heard the office door open. Hello? Anyone in here? I didn't wait. I grabbed the pipe and started sliding down, the metal cold against my palms. Halfway down, my foot slipped and I dropped the last 6 feet, hitting the ground hard enough to jar my teeth. I rolled into the shadow of the dumpster just as a flashlight beam swept the area where I'd been standing. I stayed there for a full 5 minutes, barely breathing, while the security guard checked the window I'd left open. Finally, he closed it and moved away. I ran. Jake had the car running when I got there. I dove into the passenger seat, and he pulled out immediately, driving at exactly the speed limit. Nothing suspicious. "Did you get it?" he asked. I held up my phone. Got everything. Photos of Dad's real plans, dated entries, everything we need. So what now? Now? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Now we check Dad's medical records more thoroughly, and then we figure out exactly how to destroy them. The next morning, I called the hospital where Dad had spent his last weeks. Told them I was dealing with insurance paperwork and needed copies of all his medical records. They sent them over by email within an hour. I went through every single page. The morphine doses were even worse than I'd thought. For the entire last month of his life, Dad had been on enough pain medication that he probably couldn't have told you what day it was, let alone understood complex legal documents. But there was something else I found. Notes from the hospice nurse. On March 14th, the day the will was supposedly signed, she'd written, "Patient unresponsive for most of day. Became agitated when daughter and daughter's boyfriend visited. Had to increase morphine dose to calm him. Patient unable to communicate clearly." I photographed that too. Jake came over that night and we laid everything out on my coffee table. The photos of Dad's notebooks, the medical records, the signature comparisons, all of it. "This is enough," Jake said. "We could take this to a lawyer right now. Contest the will." "No," I said. "Not yet." "Why not?" I looked at him. "Because legal battles take months, sometimes years. And in the meantime, Gavin gets to keep running the company into the ground. Our dad's company, the thing he spent 40 years building." I shook my head. "I want them to suffer first. I want them to understand what they stole and watch it crumble in their hands." Jake didn't argue. He knew I was right. The suppliers I'd already sabotaged were just the beginning. Over the next week, I made more calls. I contacted every single client I'd built relationships with over 8 years. I told them the truth about what happened, showed them the photos of Dad's real plans, explained about the forgery. Most of them were horrified. These were people who'd known my dad, who respected him. The idea that someone had forged his will while he was dying disgusted them. Within 10 days, the company lost 12 major contracts. $3 million in guaranteed revenue gone. Gavin started calling me. I didn't answer. He left voicemails, angry at first, then confused, then almost pleading. "What did you tell them? What are you doing?" I deleted every message without listening to the whole thing. Jess called too. "You're being petty," she said when I finally answered. "Dad wanted Gavin to have the company. You need to accept it and move on." "Did he?" I asked quietly. Did Dad really want that? Or did you and Gavin convince a dying man to sign something he didn't understand? There was silence on the other end of the line. I have proof, I continued. I have Dad's real notes. I have medical records showing he was too drugged to comprehend what he was signing. I have everything. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to bet your inheritance on that? She hung up on me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Jake had said about going to a lawyer. Maybe he was right. Maybe I should just file the paperwork and let the courts sort it out. But then I thought about Gavin's smirk at the lawyer's office. I thought about 8 years of working 70-hour weeks for poverty wages. I thought about my dad, barely conscious, being manipulated into signing away everything he'd built. No, the courts could come later. First, I wanted to watch them panic. The next day, I got a call from Dad's old business partner, guy named Harrison who'd sold his share of the company to Dad about 15 years ago. I hadn't spoken to him since Dad's funeral. Heard about what happened, Harrison said. The will, I mean. That doesn't sound like something your father would do. It wasn't, I said. I told him everything. The forged signatures, the medical records, the break-in at Jake's house. Harrison listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, I want to help. Why? Because your father and I built that company from nothing. We worked out of a garage for 3 years before we could afford real office space. Seeing it go to some kid who doesn't know the first thing about running a business. He sighed. It's not right. And if someone forged your father's will, they need to pay for it. I appreciate it, but I don't see how. I want to buy back in, Harrison said. The company's hemorrhaging money right now, yeah? Contracts falling through, suppliers pulling out. Gavin must be desperate. I thought about it. You want to approach him with an offer? Exactly. Lowball him. Make it look like I'm doing him a favor by taking the company off his hands before it completely collapses. Harrison paused. And once I own it, you and your brother get what you were supposed to inherit. I'll make sure of it. What do you get out of it? The satisfaction of helping an old friend's sons, and maybe a small consulting fee for my trouble. I could hear the smile in his voice. What do you say? I thought about Gavin, watching everything fall apart around him. I thought about Jess, realizing her meal ticket was disappearing. I thought about justice. I say let's do it, I said. But there was one more thing I needed to do first. That night, I went back to the office. Not to break in this time, but to watch. I parked across the street where I could see the front entrance and Gavin's office window on the second floor. I sat there for 3 hours. Around 9 p.m., I saw movement inside. Gavin was still there, working late, probably trying to figure out how to save the sinking ship. Then, around 10:30, I saw someone else arrive. Jess's car pulled into the lot. She got out and went inside. This was interesting. I pulled out my phone and set it to record video. Waited. About 20 minutes later, I could see them both in Gavin's office through the window. They were arguing about something, their body language tense and aggressive. I couldn't hear what they were saying from across the street, but I could read lips well enough to catch fragments. Something about the contracts and your brother and, we need to fix this. Then Gavin's posture changed. He looked defeated, slumped in his chair. Jess was pacing now, clearly agitated. And then she said something that made my blood run cold, even though I could only make out parts of it. Something about temporary document, and he was barely conscious. I zoomed in as much as my phone camera would allow and kept recording. Gavin stood up and went to the filing cabinet, pulled out a folder. They looked through it together, pointing at documents. Then Jess said something else, and I caught the words, original will. They were talking about it. Actually discussing the forgery, right there in the office where anyone could have seen them. I recorded for another 10 minutes. They kept talking, kept gesturing at papers. At one point, Gavin put his head in his hands, clearly stressed. Jess put a hand on his shoulder, said something that looked like, it'll be fine. Finally, they left the office together. I watched them walk to the parking lot, still talking. As they got closer to Jess's car, I crouched down so they wouldn't see me. Can't keep bleeding money like this, I heard Gavin say. His voice carried across the empty parking lot. Another 2 weeks and we won't be able to make payroll. Then sell some equipment, Jess said. Liquidate inventory. Do whatever you have to do. It's not enough. Your brother destroyed us. He took everything. He doesn't have proof, Jess said, but she sounded uncertain. Are you sure? Because he seemed pretty confident on the phone. They got in Jess's car and drove away. I sat there in the darkness, my phone still in my hand, the recording safely saved. I had them. Not just the evidence of the forged will, but actual video and audio of them discussing it, admitting to it, essentially. This wasn't circumstantial anymore. This was a confession. I sent a copy of the recording to Jake immediately. Then I sent another copy to myself via email, just to be safe. Then I uploaded it to 3 different cloud storage services. They weren't going to weasel out of this. The next morning, I called Harrison back. How fast can you move on that buyout offer? I can have paperwork ready by this afternoon. Why? Because they're starting to panic. I have recording of them discussing the forgery. They know the walls are closing in. I paused. If you're going to make an offer, do it now. while they're desperate. Harrison moved fast. By 2 p.m. that same day, he'd contacted Gavin with a formal offer to purchase the company. He offered $100,000 for Gavin's 80% stake. It was an insulting offer. The company, even in its current damaged state, was worth at least $1 million, but Harrison's pitch was perfect. This is a mercy buy. Another month and the company will be worthless. I'm offering you a way out before you lose everything. Gavin called me that night. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded desperate. Look, I know you're mad. I know things didn't go the way you wanted, but we need to talk. This offer from Harrison, it's ridiculous. You know it is. If you just back off, if you stop sabotaging the company, we can work something out. Maybe I can bring you back on as a manager or something. I deleted the message halfway through. Jake texted me. Jess has been calling Mom, trying to get her to talk to us, make us back off. Our mom had passed away when we were kids. He meant Jess was calling other family members, trying to paint us as the bad guys. I texted back, let her. When this all comes out, they'll see who the real villains are. 3 days later, Gavin accepted Harrison's offer. He had no choice. The company was drowning in debt. Suppliers were demanding payment up front for any new orders. The bank had frozen the business line of credit because too many contracts had been canceled. Employees were starting to quit because they sensed the instability. $100,000 was better than nothing. The sale went through in less than a week. Harrison paid in cash, and just like that, Gavin's ownership of Dad's company was gone. I met with Harrison the day after the sale was finalized. We sat in a coffee shop downtown, going over the paperwork. The company's in bad shape, Harrison said honestly. It's going to take months to rebuild what was lost, but it's salvageable. I know. I can help with that. He slid a document across the table. This transfers 60% ownership of the company to you. The other 40% I'm keeping as payment for my trouble and the risk I took. Fair? More than fair. I signed immediately. Welcome back, Harrison said, shaking my hand. CEO. The look on Gavin's face when Harrison told him I was the new owner was something I'd remember forever. We were all in the office for the official transition. Gavin had shown up thinking he was just signing over ownership to Harrison, probably assuming he'd be kept on in some reduced role. Instead, I walked in wearing a suit, holding the keys to the building. Gavin's face went from confused to pale to absolutely furious in about 3 seconds. You, he breathed. Me, I said calmly. Harrison was kind enough to sell me the majority stake. I'm the new owner, which means you're officially out. This is bullshit. You sabotaged the company just so you could buy it back cheap. That's fraud. No. Fraud is forging a will while someone's dying and too drugged to understand what they're signing. I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made of him and Jess discussing it in the office. His face went even paler. I have everything, I continued quietly. Medical records, Dad's real notes showing his actual wishes, video of you and Jess admitting to the forgery, all of it. I put my phone away. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of this office right now and never come back. You're going to stay quiet about all of this. And in return, I won't press charges or file a lawsuit. You can't. I can, and I will, unless you disappear, right now. Gavin stood there for a long moment, his fists clenched. Then he turned and started clearing out his desk without another word. Jess showed up about an hour later. She came storming into the office like she owned the place, her face red with fury. You son of a bitch, she hissed at me. You destroyed Gavin's life. You destroyed my life, all because you couldn't accept that Dad chose him over you. I was sitting at Dad's old desk now, my desk. I looked up at her calmly. Dad didn't choose him. You and Gavin forged a will while our father was dying. You committed fraud. You stole from your own family. That's not. I have proof. I pulled up the recording on my laptop and turned it toward her. Let her watch herself and Gavin discussing the forgery. The color drained from her face. You talked about it right in front of the windows, I said. I was parked across the street with my phone. Got everything. Video, audio, all of it. Her mouth opened and closed a few times. No sound came out. You want to know the worst part? I continued. I found Dad's notebooks, his real plans. He specifically wrote that he was worried about your spending habits. He thought you couldn't be trusted with money, and he was right, wasn't he? You were so desperate to get your hands on that inheritance that you convinced a dying man to sign away everything he'd built. I didn't. Yes, you did. And now you're going to live with it. I stood up. Get out of my office. And if you ever try to contact me or Jake again, I'll send all of this evidence to the police. Are we clear? She stared at me for a long moment, tears starting to run down her face. Then, she turned and left without another word. Jake called me that night. Did you really let them go? No charges? For now, I said. But I'm not done yet. What do you mean? I mean, I've been going through the company's financial records, and I found something interesting. Jake waited. Jess has been siphoning money from Dad's accounts for years. Small amounts, nothing huge, but it adds up. Nearly $150,000 over the last 3 years. She set up a fake vendor account, submitted invoices for services that were never rendered. Dad probably never noticed because the amounts were small enough to hide in the normal operating expenses. Holy shit. Yeah, and that's actual prosecutable fraud. Not just a forged will, but embezzlement. embezzlement. I paused. I'm going to give her 1 week to return the money. If she doesn't, I'm filing a police report and sending all the evidence to the DA. You think she has it? She better hope she does, because if not, she's going to jail. The next day, I sent Jess an email with all the documentation of her embezzlement. Bank statements, fake invoices, wire transfer records, everything. The message was simple. Return the $150,000 within 7 days or I press charges. Your choice. She didn't respond to the email. But 2 days later, I got a notification that a wire transfer had hit the company account. $150,000 from an account in Jess's name. No message, no apology, just the money. I sent the confirmation to Jake. Got it back. Are you still going to press charges? I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to see her face consequences for what she'd done. But another part of me, the part that remembered when we were kids and she wasn't always terrible, that part just wanted to be done with all of it. No, I said finally. She's out of our lives. That's enough. The next 3 months were brutal. Rebuilding the company from the damage I'd caused was harder than I'd expected. I had to personally call every client I'd sabotaged and explain everything. Show them the proof of the forgery. Apologize for the chaos. Promise things would be different now. Some of them came back, some didn't. But slowly, carefully, I started putting the pieces back together. I hired back most of the employees who'd quit during Gavin's brief tenure. Brought in some new people too. Set up new contracts with suppliers, offering better payment terms than Dad ever had. Harrison was actually a huge help. He'd been out of the business for 15 years, but he still had connections, still knew people. He made introductions, vouched for me, helped rebuild trust. Jake joined the company too, not in operations like me, but in finance. He was good with numbers, always had been. Together, we made a solid team. 6 months after taking over, we were back to profitability. Not where we'd been before the sabotage, but stable, growing, actually growing. I was in my office late one night, going over quarterly reports, when security called up. "There's someone here to see you," the guard said. "Says his name is Gavin." My stomach tightened. "Tell him I'm not available. He says it's urgent. Says he just needs 5 minutes. I thought about it. Curiosity got the better of me. Fine, send him up, but stay close. Gavin looked rough when he walked into my office. His suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed. He'd lost weight, and not in a healthy way. "What do you want?" I asked, not getting up from my desk. "I need a job," he said quietly. I laughed, actually laughed. "You're kidding." "I'm not. I'm broke. I can't find work anywhere. Every company I apply to, they call for references and somehow word gets around about what happened here. I'm blacklisted." He looked desperate. "I'll do anything. Entry level. Whatever. I just need income." "You stole my inheritance," I said flatly. "You forged my father's will while he was dying. You tried to destroy everything he built. And now you want me to give you a job? I know what I did was wrong. I know that. But I'm homeless. I'm living in my car. Jess left me the second the money ran out. I have nothing." "Good," I said. "Now you know how I felt when I walked out of that lawyer's office." "Please." "Security," I called out. The guard appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Gavin is leaving. Please escort him out, and make a note that he's not allowed back in the building." Gavin's face crumpled. "You're really going to do this? Just leave me with nothing?" "You left yourself with nothing," I said. "You made your choices. Now live with them." The security guard took him by the arm, gently but firmly. Gavin didn't resist. He just looked back at me once, his eyes pleading before being led away. I watched from my window as he walked across the parking lot to a beat-up sedan that had definitely seen better days. Watched him get in and just sit there for a few minutes before driving away. I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't feel bad either, just empty. Jake called me later that night. Heard Gavin showed up. "Yeah, you okay?" "I'm fine. How'd you hear about it?" "Security guard is friends with one of our warehouse guys. Word gets around." He paused. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing." "Did I?" "He didn't just steal from you. He stole from all of us. From Dad's legacy. He doesn't deserve your help." I knew Jake was right, but still, seeing someone that broken, that desperate, it didn't feel good. About 3 years later, I got a message request on LinkedIn from Jess. I almost deleted it without reading, but again, curiosity won. The message was long, pages of text explaining how sorry she was, how she'd been in therapy, how she understood now what she'd done wrong. She talked about how Gavin had manipulated her, convinced her that Dad favored me and Jake, and they needed to balance things out. She said she didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she understood the damage she'd caused. I read the whole thing twice. Then I deleted it and blocked her number without responding. Make sure to click on the screen to watch another story.